We all know that real estate has created more millionaires than any other industry on the planet. We also know that it has created a lot of heartache due to mismanagement, overborrowing, and just simple life events that happen to all of us. Welcome to the Cash Flow Pro podcast. My name is Casey Brown, and I am your fearless leader. And although we might be bourbon sipping and at times foul-mouthed Southerners, we will always do our best to be honest, straightforward, and due diligent with all of the information we pass along to you. Welcome to the show. Hey there, and welcome to today's episode of Cash Flow Pro, your daily real estate investing podcast and YouTube channel. So I am here today with Aileen Prak of Bonavest Capital, and her and I were just talking pre-show about where she invests and how she invests, and I cannot wait for us to jump in and hear her story and how she got to where she is today and what led her to the real estate syndication world and real estate investing world. So Aileen, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you so much for having
Awesome.
me.
You're very welcome. We're so glad to have you. We're always glad to have guests on here that can share value and help our listeners in their real estate journey, wherever they might be. So go ahead, tell us a little bit about, how you got started, where maybe this real estate thing kind of like started sticking its head up so that you could, so that you can tell the listeners how you got started.
Sure. So I got started. Well, I'll give a little bit background to myself a little bit
Okay.
first. I went the traditional path, went to school, got good grades, went and got a corporate job in finance, and so that's where my specialty lies. I work in finance in the aerospace industry,
Oh,
and
wow.
education from when we were younger has really been an important part of our lives growing up. It's something that our parents had instilled in us growing up, and even today. So education is huge for us. It's the
Sure.
foundation of everything, and so whatever we do, they always say, as long as you have your education, you have your solid foundation base. No matter
Yep.
what happens, anybody can take everything away from you, but they can never take away what's up in here. And so for me, that was a really important thing is to get that education, work the W-2 job, and then be successful in the career that we're working in.
Yep.
And, my family does real estate also. And so we always knew that real estate was a great place to create cash flow, build up wealth, but it didn't really hit home about the concept of the power of passive investing and what it could
Mhm.
do for your lives, for your families, until I became a mom myself. It was back in 2018 when I was pregnant with my first son, and he was, he after he was born, right? As
Yep.
a working W-2 employee, you get 3 months of maternity leave.
Yep.
And so I remember during that time, it was so excellent to be able to be at home with him every single day, seeing all the different milestones that he's changing, that things that he's facing, experiencing every single moment. However, after those 3 months were up, as all W-2 workers know, you have to go back to work. You have to go back and trade your time for money. And
Yep.
that was a really hard decision for us because me and my husband, we work far from home. Our
And
commute
that
time,
is
we
some
live
of
in
the most valuable time right there.
It is.
That's it.
It is. Because the commute time is really about, for me, about 3 to 4 hours every single day that I was losing with my kid to be able
Mm,
to drive, and so I would take a van pool every day to get to work, so I didn't have, like, my own vehicle to drive back and forth from home when I needed to, just because, it was so far away.
yeah.
And so I remember we had to make a decision when I had to go back to work to put him into daycare and to trust that these strangers are going to take care of him, to be able to keep him safe and to treat him as well as they could and keep him safe and healthy while we were not
Yep.
there, to their best of the ability. I remember after a couple of weeks, we get a phone call from the daycare and they say, "Hey, your son is sick. You need to come pick him up. He has a high fever."
Yeah, and
And
you're 2 hours away or
yes,
oh
yes.
my
And as
god.
a first time parent, you feel so awful not being able to get to your kid right away.
Yep.
You're not able to be there, even though it's a little bit extra time to get there, but you want to be there immediately. And so it was in that moment where the light bulb clicked and I was thinking like, there has to be a better way where, I don't have to trade my time for money. I can be there whenever my kid wants me to be there for those important parts and stuff like that. I don't have to always trade my time for money. I have other sources of income coming in. And so that's when we really looked for different ways to create passive income for ourselves, to create other streams of income. So in case something were to happen, our money is working hard for us and we don't necessarily
Exactly.
have to put in those efforts and to work hard for our money.
Yeah.
So we looked at all different options and we came upon, we always kept going back to real estate.
Yeah.
And it was always real estate, real estate, real estate. It fit our model, what we were looking to do, fit our lifestyle. It's the way we approach things is a little bit more conservative. And so real estate allowed us to, invest in something that was backed by a hard asset, something that you can touch, that you can feel. And
Yeah.
the intrinsic value is always going to be there in the property that you own.
Yep.
So we really love that model. So we ended up.
And
Oh,
the
sorry,
the
go ahead.
the income, I was just gonna mention, you just the whole benefit of everything that you said, and especially from a person that was in the position you were in. Did you say 2018? Is that right?
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, and I mean, anything that you've given there that says, "Hey, I enjoyed working this W-2 job." I can, I'm just what I'm getting at is it's just that's the way so many people get started. Is they're like, "Hey, my kids are here, they're growing. This is it. This is that." And I know that was a huge point just in being self-employed for myself. Obviously, I was not in the syndication game at that time, but it's just such a benefit. So go ahead.
Yes, no, absolutely. Because ultimately, when we looked at real estate, we saw it as a vehicle, as a tool to be able to get us to a lifestyle that we could design, a lifestyle that we choose to be in.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, through real estate, the ultimate goal is to just have choices in life,
Yeah.
is to be able to choose whether or not you want to continue working your W-2, to be able to choose, where you spend your time with your kids, with your family, or whoever you want to spend it with. So ultimately that's the end goal, and we saw it as the best and probably the most, maybe not the fastest way, essentially, because real estate is a long-term gain, so you have to look at it as a long-term vision, long-term goal. But
Yeah.
over time, with the compounding that we're able to make our way there, and in the long term be able to live that lifestyle that we envision for ourselves, for our family.
Yeah, and and again, that's where a lot of people are. And the thing is, though, is I try to get through when I'm talking to somebody who's wanting to come into the real estate investment, or well, real estate syndication world, which is specifically where we're at. But when you start looking at it from anybody that wants to become self-employed for the reasons you've just stated, one of the biggest things, if not the biggest thing that I hear, is just it's the word fear. Okay, what if this? What if that? What if I don't make enough money to support my family? What if I can't meet my goals? And so I guess I want to kind of dive in right here. I want to stop right where we're at, and I want to dive in right here and hear your version of how you tackled the fear of self, really, the fear of self, the fear of I can't, what if I don't, or what if, because I'm sure that was real, right?
Absolutely. I think anybody who's starting something new, something a little bit outside your comfort zone, you're always going to have that fear, that limiting belief in the back of your mind at all times, especially
Yeah.
when you're getting started. And like you said, it's that fear of like, what if I take this step, or, and I stumble and I fall, right?
Yep.
But what's worse than facing those fears and taking those actions is not taking those actions and
Yep.
living a life of regret and looking back 10 years down the road and thinking to yourself, I should have. What
Yep.
if I did this? And so that scares me much more than let's try this out and see how it works, because what would happen? Maybe I just might not be as successful as I thought I was. Maybe
Sure.
might lose a little bit of money, but at the same time, money, you can always regain it back. I can always work towards it. It's not something to be afraid of, but it's like the potential of missing out of what could be the possibilities out there, that scares me even more. I wouldn't want to live a life of regret down the road.
That's right. And and when you look at that, you can't buy that time back. You can buy the time forward, by doing something to shorten a timeline or whatever. But once that time's gone, the dollar can be made again. The time is gone, and the dollar is just, in my opinion, the dollar is just a division of time. period. Anyway, and so the the fact, and I heard somebody one time that said, and I hate to just keep harping on this whole thing of, but I know it's such a dividing factor between those of us that are successful in certain aspects of self-employedness and the people who are feel like they're stuck working the dead end, whatever. And so when I say, I saw I guess a meme or whatever you want to call it online one time, and it said, what if I told you that the things in your life, the goods, the stuff in your life wasn't bought with money, it was bought with little bits of your time. And that was one of the things that like, I mean, if that doesn't hit you like a freight train, I don't know what does or what would, because essentially, and that really probably hit me harder because of where I was in life at the time. Was you know, I had young kids that started at the age of like 8 and went to 3, I think, or whatever. I'd have to go back and do the math, but what I'm getting at is that was a point in life where I was really, all you hear all the way around you is everybody says, you better enjoy this, you better enjoy this because you better enjoy this because of this, you better enjoy this because they're going to be grown, you better enjoy. And it really hit me because I was spending all of, much like yourself, of course you were already you had kind of, you were still a younger parent, but by the time I got to where I was like, man, this is going by so fast.
Mhm.
And this is, and all I'm doing, and again, I was even self-employed at the time, but I hadn't scaled to the spot where I wanted to be, where it meant, hey, this stuff will take care of itself. And some of that was control issues with myself because I needed to let it go and let it handle itself, aside of me being in control. So I'll let you speak to everything I just kind of dumped out there.
No, absolutely. I think especially with everything that had been going on with the pandemic and everything like that, it also sped up everybody's mindset about, health, time is so important. It's the one currency that we don't like everybody has the same amount of time. You can
Yep.
never gain more time, right? But you can always gain more money. Money, real estate, wealth, that's all just a tool to be able to share and to be, to gain that time freedom back because
Yep.
ultimately what makes you happy in life, you can, that increment, let's say you make $100,000 one year. If you
Yep.
make that $200,000 the next year, is that really going to give you happiness? It's
No.
not really, it's not, but it's going to give you the ability to do things, to spend your time and to provide that, utilize that as a tool to be able to get you to that happiness with your family, because you're not worrying about where the money is coming from. You're not worrying about the next check. Your health is more relaxed. You're less stressed and everything like that. So if you're
Yeah.
able to kind of not focus on that spot side of things, but focus on the things that matter in life, like your time and your health and your family, that's where your value comes from. That's where your happiness comes from, is to be able to do those things. So when you look back on life, it's like, well, I made $1 million, but did I waste all my time with my kids? Did I
Yeah.
miss all their games, miss all the times where their first walk or whatever like that?
Yep.
It's all about those types and those moments that we need to cherish and we need to focus on. And so as we're taking this journey, there's this path, we have to focus on the present itself. We can't forget why we're doing what we're doing.
Yep, that's exactly right. And it's so anti the American way when you say, "Hey, I'm going to chill here and I'm going to go to my kid's ball game and I don't care how much money y'all make while I'm there. That's where I'm going to be." And that's not the American way, and it's not the capitalist way, and it's not the so many different ways that it's not. But again, that was why I wanted to stop right there, because I wanted you to define those fears and for the audience, and you most definitely hit the nail right on the head, and you did it in the first two or three sentences that you said, when you said, what is more fearful, doing something and potentially failing, or continuing down the path you're on and getting to the end of that path or the middle of that path or wherever, and then looking back and saying, man, I wish I had done I wish I had done this, I wish I had done that. And that's it's a huge kind of hard topic or hard subject for people to define because everybody's spot is different. Okay, you everybody's goals are different. I've got people, I know people in my life whose goal is to just make it through the day and make it to the pillow at night. And the fact of the matter is that if that's what makes them happy and that's what they get enjoyment out of, then there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's the person who gets up every day and just makes it to the pillow at night, that then looks out the window at all these other people doing this and this, wishing that, hey man, I wish I could get like that. And get up and do it. Just take action. If that's what you want, take action. If you don't, then keep doing what you do. So I want to kind of move forward a little bit here. So you had your son, and of course we talked a little bit about balance in those life, the even if when you become self-employed, the balance of life and business is super challenging to the point where a lot of people can't do it. I mean, it just becomes so. Then so kind of walk us forward from there.
Yeah, like you mentioned, with the time and everything like that, we only have so many hours in the day, and
Yep.
so we have to be protective of where we spend our time, and spending it where we wanna spend it,
Yep.
and making sure that we're utilizing the time that we do have to the best of our abilities, to the highest and most productive use of our time. And
Yep.
so you look at your day and you kind of break it up into different increments, and whatever's not important at that time to help you move forward or to fulfill your life, you kind of have to block those things out and be protective of what the time that you do have, and then
Yep.
really hone in and be present for all the actions that you're actually taking in those moments to move forward with your goals, spend it with your family or anything like that. And so it's just being very clear on what your end goal is, what your intentions are, and then breaking it down and trying to block out what's all the other noise that's happening on, because there's so much out there, there's so much noise.
Noise. And I don't mean kids banging on a xylophone noise. We're talking about like the noise that you can't go to sleep and get away from. It's constantly banging in your head, and it's way worse. No, I know. And then you have to set up those noise filters to be able to cognitively understand what is noise and what is something that you really need to take in and retain and figure out how to use. And so it's definitely challenging. So let's go forward here and talk about Bonavest Capital, and tell us a little bit about maybe how that became a reality, and what, again, I'd like to maybe even put a foot back behind us and toe in there and say, what were the fears that you had as that became, not because I think it was fearful or anything like that, but there had to be some type of here we go, because I know I had that when I first, when I wired an attorney somewhere that I had only met via a Zoom call to set up my fund and get things going, and I was just like, here we go, and then here it went. So I'd like to hear a little bit about that.
So when we discovered multifamily syndications, and we decided and we did our education, because like I mentioned, education is so important to get that understanding and that foundation first before, taking that next step and taking that action. So after we did all of our due diligence and got into multifamily syndication, we invested first as a passive investor.
Hmm.
And that first, check that you're writing to somebody you might not have ever met in person, you
Yep.
just had like phone calls with them on the phone. That was
Yep.
very scary, because it's like, well, this is the first time we're doing something like this. It's not the norm. Nobody else in our circle has done something like this,
Yep.
but we've done enough due diligence, we feel enough confidence, and we built up enough relationship with the sponsor to feel comfortable that we are entrusting our money to somebody who's going to take care of it, be good stewards of our capital.
Yep.
And so that's what we did. And so so that first check was very, very difficult. And it's getting that over that limiting belief in that what if kind of like what if something goes south? What if they take my money and just run away with it?
Yep.
All those thoughts kind of go into running your head. But if you're doing your proper due diligence and you're taking those educational steps moving forward, and doing the right processes, and really, really honing in on who you are betting with and wanting to invest with, you should feel more comfortable about entrusting your money with somebody, and then going
Sure.
forward.
Sure. Yeah. And then once you realize and once you start getting those first passive income checks, like you said, it's like, maybe this really is a thing. Maybe this is something I can begin to income replace with. You know what I'm saying? So now all of a
Yep.
sudden you're like, all right, I had this money in my account and now I'm going to invest as and a lot of people start with 25,000 or 50,000. And again, don't get me wrong, that's a lot of money. When you're looking at it as a working capital, it becomes a little different when it becomes a tool, if you will, rather than again. And you can sit back and there you go. And some people sit back and some people can continue to take the action and move into a business model like yourself. So the first investment was what year? What year was the first passive investment as an LP?
It was the beginning of 2020.
Beginning of 2020. Okay, so it's been a couple of years now. And how many LPs have you invested in since?
So we've invested in about 13 deals so far as an
All right.
LP.
Hi, this is Casey Brown, host of the Cash Flow Pro podcast and YouTube channel. Have you been thinking about investing in real estate but just don't know where to begin? I'd like to help by inviting you to check out our website at www.3000capital.com. There you will find an array of material that will help you learn all about real estate syndication. And while you're there, be sure to check out our free video series download titled 5 Must-Know Keys to Success in Passive Real Estate Investing. I'd also like to personally thank you for making Cash Flow Pro part of your day. Now, back to the show.
And then now, are you a GP on how many?
Yes, and then we are a GP on 4 deals, and then we did one joint venture, so 5 active deals.
Wow. And then how many doors does that, not that, or how many storage units or how many, what's the quantification there?
So on the limited partner side, it's a little over 1,000 doors total, and
Wow.
then on the general partner side, multifamily, it's about 142 doors that we have under assets under management, and then 452 storage units.
Wow, isn't that something? That's awesome. And then so when you start looking at this and this real estate syndication world really became a reality for you to plug into, I want to go back and just real quick, I want to so what's been one of the biggest challenges, I guess, of educating people on what this whole world looks like is that you don't have to quit a W2 job. You can use W2 income to plug into an LP side like you did, and that because like if you have additional money that you can invest, or you could have a 401k or an IRA or whatever, you can put that stuff into deals as an LP and grow your wealth. You don't have to necessarily go through this story that her and I just went through of being scared and starting your own this and starting your own that and walking out and doing this and that. You can continue to work that, but you can invest as an LP and get those dividends that I guess they're dividends to that's the technical term. But anyhow,
Yes. No.
so on your GP side,
Mhm.
um, so you invested as an LP, and then when did you decide that hey, maybe this is something we want to pursue ourselves?
Well, we wanted to invest as a GP first, or as an LP first, because we wanted to really test out the model and have a proof of concept of it
Yeah.
first and see how it worked out. And because it did work out for us, and we really liked, the model itself, and it's not if you're doing your due diligence, it's not a scam. You trust the people that you're working with.
Yep.
After that, then as we did a couple more deals and we were talking to more and more people in the space, it just kind of organically became, we can do this on the active side as well. And so
Yeah.
our whole model our whole model is to work actively so that we can invest passively. So that while
Awesome.
we're working hard for our money, or while we're trading our time for money and we're working hard for it, at the same time, our money, we're investing it passively so that our money is working hard for us too. And the
Yep.
combination of those two strategies for us has been able to propel us to get to where we are today. And so that's something that we're super grateful for, and something that we focus on is so that, we're working on both sides.
Yeah, and that's there you go. I mean, that's exactly what I just said. You work, and it doesn't matter even if it's a W. It doesn't matter if it's a W-2 job. If whatever the job is, work, take that money and invest it passively, and then live off the passive income. And you're always gonna have. I mean, it'll always be there. And then for some in some respects, people have a built-in fund there that you could time up for. You could time one of the next investments for a kid's college or whatever, if you wanted to use some of the principal or whatever it is. That's at the end of the day, that's what it's there for. And so what a brilliant plan. Now, so Bonavest Capital, you all invest. Do you all have, like, you mentioned self storage, you mentioned some doors and some other things. Do you all have a specific geography that you're looking at? I know we talked about pre-show, but I'd like for you maybe to share that with the listeners.
Sure. So we like to focus on the Sunbelt states. So we like Las Vegas, Phoenix, the Carolinas, Texas, Florida, places where we can gain some cash flow, but there's also the potential of upside for appreciation on the back end as well. And so we're looking for those two things as we invest in different in real estate opportunities.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now and then, okay, now and self storage, multifamily, and what was it? Was there another asset class in there?
No, self storage and multifamily within real estate; those are our two main focuses.
Awesome. And do you use, like, off market deals? I know that's the big craze. Everybody talks about off market, off market, off market. What's your biggest kind of maybe supply of deals?
So it has been a like when we in real estate, especially within the syndication space, it's all about the relationships that you've built up.
Yeah.
So the relationships that we've built up with the brokers, other sellers, and everything like that, we've been getting like off market deals as well, so that you're not competing and bidding against other people. You maybe get the first look at potential opportunities, and then have the first opportunity to bid for those properties before it goes to the masses,
Yeah.
so that way you're a little bit ahead of the curve in that sense. But it's just about the relationships that we have been building.
Sure, sure, yeah, and you're right. I mean, and that's really with any business. It's all about relationships, and anybody that tries to shortcut that, or jump quickly from, hey, how are you? Do you want to invest? That's where a lot of times people, newer syndicators or new people who are in the business are really kind of missing the boat there. So, well, listen, we're kind of moving towards the end of the show here. And I'd like to ask a couple of just maybe questions more along the personal side of things. And I know we probably dove deeper in the personal life of somebody than we typically do here. But I feel like it's so relatable to the spot where so many people are in their life right now. Whether they're looking at getting into the real estate world in general, whether that be sales, syndication, or just becoming self-employed. So I hope that the listeners gain some value from that. Now, I would like for you to kind of, I'm going to ask you a couple questions here. And the first is, would you share with the listeners maybe what your favorite book that you've read either lately is, or even, and it doesn't even have to be real estate related. What's a book that really kind of added rocket fuel to your life?
So I would say when we got first started within the real estate, I'll provide one of those examples. Is the Joe Fairless's best ever apartment
Yeah.
syndication book. That one has a ton of great information, whether or not you want to start as an active or a limited partner. That has been one of our guiding books from the very beginning.
Yeah, and it's so full. And Joe, I was talking to Joe a couple weeks ago, and it just his demeanor follows through in person just as well as it does through the book. And he carries that book in a it's like a playbook, really, almost. I mean,
Hmm.
it's like it's like, what do you do next? Okay, here it is. So you just kind of look at it, and it gives you the X's and O's of the syndication business. So, and what is the best trip you've ever taken or hope to take in the near future?
So the best trip that me and my husband took together has been when we went to Singapore.
Oh,
We did it for a week trip, and that was fantastic. Primarily because the city or the country is beautiful and the
yeah.
food is amazing. We love
Uh,
food.
well, yeah, I guarantee you don't love food any more than I do. I would bet on that. So, well, listen, why don't you share the best way for the listeners to reach out to you, even if it's somebody that's maybe a new mother that's looking at possibly saying, "Hey, I want to do what you did in that episode. I'd like to talk to you about." Maybe how to replace or even possibly even invest with you as an LP to get started. Why don't you tell folks how they can get in touch with you?
Sure. So they can go to our website, bonavestcapital.com, and they can fill in a contact sheet there. We also have a free resource, a video resource that my husband and I put together. It's a series that you can just download for free. It's how to do a due diligence on passive investors, on passive investments, on how to, vet the sponsors, look at deals, and things that we looked for as we're investing as limited partners ourselves. And of
Sure.
course, I'm happy to talk to anybody who wants to just email me directly. It's Aileen at bonavestcapital.com. And feel free to email out. I'm happy to chat and share any knowledge and be a resource to anybody who's interested.
Awesome. Now, as my listeners are very well accustomed, I'm going to go back, and it is Aileen, Eileen at Bonavest, that's Bonavest capital.com. We're also going to put that in the show notes for the listeners to be able to possibly click on and just get with you that way. And Eileen, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to talk with you and hear your story. And I know that as much as your story was relatable to me, I know it's going to be relatable to the get to the listeners as well. So thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Casey. I really
You're
enjoyed
very
it.
welcome. Thank you.
Cashflow Pro is hosted by Casey Brown, founder and CEO of 3000 Capital, a commercial real estate investment firm committed to providing its investors with ongoing cash flow and helping them build long-term wealth. If you enjoyed today's podcast, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified about all our future episodes. You can find more information about us and our investment philosophy by clicking the link in the show notes below. Thanks for listening.